Welcome back. In this optional Overachiever Track training, you're going to learn the secret to getting noticed anywhere, your visual product branding. As you know, people make their judgments about you and your product fast, usually within 3 to 7 seconds. The truth is that life for most people is faster and busier than it's ever been before. We're bombarded by products, ads, and messages every single day. When we get in the car, turn on the radio, and God forbid, open Facebook. There's more noise and more clutter in the marketplace than ever before, and we're making snap judgments about what to pay attention to and what to ignore. It's the only way we can cope with everything that's competing for our attention. Most people are looking for an excuse to disqualify your marketing so they can tune out and leave, rather than looking for an excuse to pay attention and stay. And the things that people naturally notice first are almost always visual. As you learned in the 5-step product sales sequence, you've got to get noticed before someone spends the time to find out what you do and why it matters. My friend Michael Drew says, before you can win someone's money, first you have to win their time. You've got to get their attention and keep it. And the very first step to doing that is visual. People instantly tune in to the visuals, quickly noticing eye-catching colors and design. They admire meaningful, high-quality images and read bold headlines that convey value. The visual signals you send give important clues as to who you are and what you do. They instantly let your audience know whether you're an A player or a bit player. Unfortunately, this is exactly where most people fall down. Like all the best experts, you're great at what you do, but you may have noticed that these days that's not nearly enough. The environment for your message, both online and off, is not only getting more cluttered, it's getting more sophisticated. As the online business and internet marketing world matures, the homemade logos and websites of 5 years ago no longer work today. That said, the options for getting high-quality, low-cost design are rapidly expanding. The good news is that you don't need to be visual or a designer. You just need to know what to ask for and where to look. In this training, you'll learn how to get the 4 main visual branding elements of your product design quickly and inexpensively: your product logo, your color palette, your font palette, and the style of your imagery. When done right, in the way I'm going to show you how to do in this training, they instantly signal to your audience that you're the real deal and tip the scales in your favor. Keep in mind that this training is optional. If you're just getting started, or you're selling a one-on-one product or even a one-to-few product, you may not need any visual branding at all to sell your product and hit our $2,000 mission accomplished goal. If you're primarily selling your product through the Chatterbox campaign and more direct forms of marketing, you can sell your product without any kind of website or visual branding at all. So feel free to skip this video and this step if you want to keep things simple for now. If you do want to work on this now, I'm going to take you through the basics of each of the 4 visual branding elements that give your product a unique look and feel, starting with your product logo. There are 2 primary kinds of logos: font-based logos and icon-based logos, which often include both your product name and a symbolic shape or graphic. I'm only going to talk about font-based logos in this training, since they're the fastest, easiest, and most inexpensive kinds of logos to create. They're also the most common and the best way to get started and look professional without spending a lot of time or money on something before you've tested it in the market and know that you have something people want to buy. Until you have that proof of concept, I don't recommend getting a fancy icon-based product logo designed. It's just too time-consuming and too expensive to get it done right at this stage, and your mission is to get your experience product designed, marketed, and making $2,000 or more in 10 weeks or less. While you can do this for yourself, I'd rather have you spend your time and energy designing your product and not your visual branding. If you can afford between $5 to $50 on your visual branding, then you can go to Fiverr.com and have this done for you. I don't recommend spending any more than $50 on your product branding right now, because at this stage, it's more important to focus on making money than spending money. We run a branding agency, we've got a lot of design resources at our fingertips, and still, many of our products use simple font-based logos. Your products don't need fancy branding to be successful, and fancy branding often distracts people from getting their product done and out so they can start making money and iterate their way to awesome. So this training is focused on the basic product branding that you need to get started and look like a pro without spending much time or money. Sound like a plan? Good. Let's do this. There are 3 types of font-based logos that are good choices for your product brand: the simple font logo, the font and shape logo, and the font and meaning logo. I'll explain these one by one. I recommend choosing which type of font-based logo you prefer before approaching a designer on Fiverr.com so you know exactly what to ask for and you can get it done fast. The first type of font-based logo is the simple font logo. This is simply your product brand name in a distinct, well-chosen font. This is super quick and easy to get done on Fiverr.com, and it will look great and get the job done with little to no fuss. Let me give you a few examples from the world of business branding. The same principles apply for product branding. My client, Evan Markatz, is a well-known dating coach who helps smart, strong, successful women understand men and fall in love. At first, we looked into using a simple handwritten font to depict his name in a friendly and relatable way, but Evan realized that he wanted something that conveyed more authority, so we ended up choosing a more classic serif font for his name. Here are 4 more examples. As you can see, the New York City Ballet and the Guggenheim use sans serif fonts to create a more contemporary feel, while the Atlantic and Princeton University use a serif font to create a more classic feel. Now, you may be wondering what exactly are serif, sans serif, and script fonts and how these font choices impact the look and feel of your brand. So before moving on to our second kind of font-based logo, I want to quickly walk you through the 4 main font styles. Once you understand the basics of typography, you'll be able to make informed font choices that support your brand. You'll also be able to speak to your graphic designer in a language that they understand. I can't tell you how important it is to be able to communicate what you want if you actually want to get it. Makes sense, right? So there are 4 main font styles: serif, sans serif, script, and decorative or ornamental fonts. Our first type of fonts, which you can see on the left, are serif fonts. These fonts have small flourishes or tails at the end of letters, which are called serifs. Serif fonts used to be chiseled into stone and used in all the original typeset books, newspapers, and publications. Because they've been around a long time, they're often perceived as traditional, classy, refined, and expensive. Depending on how they're used, they can also be seen as either traditional and classy or stiff and old-fashioned. A few of the most common serif fonts that you may recognize are Times New Roman, Garamond, and Palatino, though I'd stay away from the common fonts in your product logos since you want something more distinctive. Our second type of fonts, which you can see on the right, are sans serif fonts. These are a newer addition to typography, and they don't have flourishes at the end of letters. They're perceived as modern, clean, friendly, and straightforward. Depending on how they're used, they can come across as either modern and sophisticated, or cheap and inexpensive. A few of the most common and recognizable sans serif fonts are Helvetica, Arial, and Futura. And again, for the most part, I recommend staying away from the most common fonts in your logos. Our third type of font are script fonts. These include both formal cursive script fonts, such as Apple Chancery and Monotype Cursiva, as well as more casual handwriting fonts, such as Journal and Jenna Sue. Formal script fonts can work for logos if you want to convey class, distinction, or elegance, though readability can be an issue. If you go this route, it's important to make sure that you choose a font where every letter is readable. Casual handwriting fonts can give your product logo a friendly, approachable feel. I often mix casual handwriting fonts with sans serif fonts in our product logos to create something modern, yet accessible. Now, our final type of fonts are decorative, novelty, or ornamental fonts. This type of font is more playful and distinctive, but can easily look cheesy or stereotypical since they tend to evoke a particular culture or time period, such as the Wild West or the psychedelic fonts of the 1960s. I would avoid using this kind of font in your product logos unless you're going for a very specific themed or retro look. Here on the screen are 3 examples of decorative fonts: Odin, Tokyo, and Papyrus. Other popular decorative fonts that I recommend steering clear of include Hobo and Curls MT. Now that you have a basic understanding of typography, can you see why Evan Markatz's serif logo conveys established authority? while the Guggenheim and the New York City Ballet says clean, modern, and sophisticated. Pause the video now to decide which of the 4 kinds of fonts that you want to use in your product logo and why. Using your worksheet as a visual guide, I'll be waiting here for you when you come back. Welcome back. Our second type of font-based logo is font and shape. This is your product name either inside a simple shape, such as a square, rectangle, circle, or custom shape, or a product name that incorporates a simple line or shape into the type treatment. We use font and shape logos for many of our products. The Experience Product Masterclass incorporates a simple line between the sans serif fonts in the Word Experience product and the handwritten Word Masterclass. Call to Adventure, which we've since rebranded to Start With You, had a more casual feel. It incorporates hand-drawn lines with hand-drawn fonts. Another example is the legendary entrepreneur John Assaraf, who frames his name between 2 lines. In addition to separating his first name and his last name with a dot, a few simple shapes gives his name more emphasis and gravitas. Now our third font-based logo is the font and meaning. This is a hybrid between a font-based logo and an icon-based logo. It's primarily driven by your product name, but includes some simple graphic element that symbolizes your business. Something simpler than an icon, yet more complex or conceptual than a font and shape logo. The most famous example from the corporate world is the FedEx logo. FedEx's designers chose a font that when put together would create an arrow in the negative space between the E and the X, symbolizing the fast delivery that FedEx promises. Similarly, with the original Heroic logo, we used a simple yet distinctive sans serif font that has a more architectural feel to it. And all we did to make this a font and meaning logo is replace the letter E with 3 lines to symbolize the web navigation menu that's frequently used on mobile phones. In the web design world, this is called a hamburger menu, and we designed this really fast. And it worked until we had the time and resources to invest in an icon-based graphic later on. Here's another example of a font and meaning logo from Suzanne Evans. She places her name inside a geometric shape that looks like a rectangle with a triangle attached to it. And the reason she does this is because she's all about building a movement and making a difference through your business. Her logo was inspired by the signs that people carry at political protests and rallies. If you use this third, more sophisticated kind of design, you may need to brainstorm concepts on your own before approaching a designer on Fiverr.com. If you've got trouble coming up with a great font and meaning concept, I recommend sticking to a simple font or font and shape logo at this point. The goal here is to get your product logo done fast so you can focus on making money. This can easily become a rabbit hole if you let it. Pause the video now and decide on which kind of our 3 kinds of font-based logos that you want to use for your product brand. Welcome back. Now that you know what kind of logo you want to create, let's move on to the second core element in your visual product branding, color. Color can grab attention almost more quickly than any other visual element. Try this exercise for a moment. Squint your eyes until everything becomes a blur. Now what do you see? Color, right? You see color even when you're not looking or focusing. You see color even when you're driving 70 miles an hour down the highway. Color can instantly increase the attention value of your product logo and web pages before your visitor has even had a chance to work out what you're all about. The reason color is so powerful is because it creates contrast, which is one of the 2 phenomena the human eye is designed to detect. The second thing is movement. Being able to detect contrast and movement are the 2 critical elements that literally ensure our survival as a species, allowing us to find food and avoid danger.
I try and hide in a crowd, and what do you know? I'm found every single time. Get that? Waldo. Yeah, I'm Waldo! I'm Waldo! Big deal!
This is the reason why so many fast food restaurants who rely on their outdoor signage to attract hungry customers off the streets use high contrast color combinations such as yellow and red. It's the reason you can instantly spot a McDonald's, Burger King, or Denny's from the highway, even if you're not looking. You see the sign before you order the burger, and your website visitors are doing the same thing. I don't know about you, But the part of my brain that craves caffeine has gotten really good at spotting that Starbucks green in the distance. I know that particular shade of dark green means a steaming hot cup of coffee, and I can almost imagine myself holding that hot cup of coffee and taking that first satisfying sip, all from seeing color. No coffee even necessary. How's that for Pavlovian conditioning? The same holds true for product branding. If you remember any of the marketing around our Experience Product Masterclass, you may visualize the color lime green. Pretty much everything we've put out in our marketing and delivery of the Experience Product Masterclass has been black, white, and lime green. We even chose a lot of black and white imagery to further enhance our distinctive lime green. We do use turquoise, magenta, and gray as accent colors here, but overall the palette is super focused. And because it's so focused around just one distinct color, lime green, you can quickly identify Experience Product Masterclass materials. Similarly, if you go to Heroic, you'll notice our emphasis on the color purple. While we need more versatility in our main business brand, Live Your Message, with product brands, I like to focus on one dominant color. Color grabs attention and quickly creates a feeling or mood because each color has specific meanings and emotions associated with it. Color grabs attention and quickly creates a feeling or mood because each color has specific meanings and emotions attached to it. By focusing your product color palette on one dominant color, like we do in the Experience Product Masterclass and Heroic, you're going to create an intense, concentrated impression that evokes the emotions and associations of that particular color. I recommend taking this dominant color approach with your product brands to keep them simple and have them differentiate from your main business brand later on when you create it. You may notice that with Live Your Message that we include purple, green, and orange in our color palette, as well as other colors. The How to Name Anything guide you got with the last training was branded with the full palette of Live Your Message and not the Experience Product Masterclass colors, since we're going to be selling it separately as a low-cost product that funnels into our more distinctive branded products. But business branding goes beyond the scope of this training. For now, I want to show you why a single dominant color approach is so effective when creating product brands and gives you more flexibility later when you start to develop your business brand. As I read these color characteristics for you, focus first on choosing the dominant color you want to represent your product, and then just check off your favorite option as we go. Then in the Ultimate Visual Product Branding Guide that we include with this training, we've included a few color palettes for each of the dominant colors, plus black, white, gray, and 1 to 2 accent colors that you can use sparingly to balance and complement your dominant color. Keep in mind with the accent colors that not every color in your product palette needs to have a profound meaning behind it. They're just there in a supporting role to make the dominant color stand out and look good. So you want to pick the dominant color, then choose a palette that accentuates and complements that dominant color. Let's start with blue. Blue is the most popular color in the world. It's hard to meet anyone who doesn't like blue, and it's easy to find thousands of people who identify blue as their absolute bestest, favoriteest color. It's always a safe choice because it's hard to offend anyone with the color blue, and it lends itself well to dozens of shades from light blue to midnight blue that show up well in print and on screen. Blue actually signifies safety, calm, serenity, peace, and dependability. It conveys trust and credibility. But the universal popularity of blue can also make this color choice seem traditional and conservative, and not the best pick of primary color if your product is all about innovation. If you want to add more energy to this tried and true color, choose a brighter blue or cyan, which conveys more strength, dynamism, and confidence, or a shade like turquoise that feels more energetic and tropical. Here's an example of the Infinite Earth Lab, a product brand that we designed for our client Michael Hancock's that's based on the color blue, with light blue and gold as accent colors. Moving on to red. In the internet marketing world, red is indispensable because it grabs attention and conveys urgency like no other color. Since the color red increases enthusiasm and action, it works beautifully for headlines, arrows, and other visual accents. It's a sexy, provocative color, conveying a mix of passion and aggression, and it worked perfectly for the websites and product brands that I designed for Morgana Ray. She's a bold character with a bold message. Notice how she uses gold as an accent color. Next up, we have pink. Pink is, without a doubt, the most feminine color out there, conveying compassion, nurturing, and love. It's a popular choice for women entrepreneurs for that reason, and it also conveys thoughtfulness and comfort in a way that inspires confidence. While pastel pink has a soft romantic feel to it, the more vibrant hot pink shades convey passion and energy, like this website from Suzanne Evans, who is more of a powerhouse than a shrinking daisy. She goes all in with the hot pink and doesn't use any accent colors at all. Next up, you have purple. Because the color purple is so rare in nature, it's often associated with luxury, nobility, and royalty. With those associations come a feeling of power, wealth, grandeur, and ambition. At the same time, the color purple has deep spiritual meanings, symbolizing wisdom, creativity, devotion, mystery, and magic. It's the most powerful wavelength of the rainbow. We use purple as the dominant color for heroic, which is all about creating a powerful web presence with beauty, brains, and brawn. Now for orange. While orange is a color that conveys fun, warmth, happiness, friendliness, communication, and expression, it can elicit strong emotions. People tend to love it or hate it. It works well as an accent color, and dark orange can provide an alternative to the red that you see everywhere. But be careful about using this as the primary dominant color for your site, since it can produce a love-hate quality. That said, many technology products choose orange because it's a little bit different. So here's an example of our product brand Call to Adventure, which we've since rebranded to Start With You. CTA used orange as a dominant color with green and a light slate blue as accent colors. You rarely see yellow as a primary brand color since it's most often used as an accent color for buttons. That said, yellow is still a powerful color that conveys joy, happiness, and energy. It can activate memory and stimulate the mind. And because it's such a happy color, it works well as an accent and can provide a nice contrast to almost any other color, especially those opposite the color wheel, such as purple, blue, or red. If you want a more intense shade, choose a gold, which conveys success, wealth, and personal power, such as this example from my friend Alicia Dunham's. Now for green. Because green is a color of nature, fertility, and life force, it conveys a sense of both well-being and vitality. It signifies growth while conveying balance and harmony. Dollars are green, so this color has come to symbolize wealth and money. Yet it still manages to convey love and consciousness. It's a popular color and safe to use, but some shades of green can look sickly or nauseating. It also doesn't work as well in the lighter shades. I built a site for law business mentors that use greens heavily since they wanted to convey the end benefit of having both a lucrative law practice and a balanced life. In addition to your dominant product brand color, I recommend including black, white, and gray in your product palette. Black conveys power, authority, mystery, and sophistication, but it doesn't usually work as well as a background color on the web since it can be hard to read small white text against a black background. However, if you're a visual artist, black can provide a complementary frame for your imagery. Black does elicit strong emotions and can be heavy and overpowering, or even sinister since it symbolizes death in some cultures. It's often used to provide contrast, which increases legibility, which is why you so commonly see black text against a white background. Now, white is often described as negative space. It provides a container or blank slate to highlight everything else. It conveys purity, cleanliness, simplicity, freshness, innocence, and mental clarity. It's often used as a background color on the web, or you might see white text on top of a black or dark background. You can rarely go wrong with white. Some people feel like it's too stark and barren, but others see it as full of potential. Finally, gray is kind of a non-color. It's often used as a background color, font color, or accent color because it accentuates and plays well with all the other colors out there. It's quiet, natural, balanced, stable, practical, and timeless. It also conveys an understated sophistication, but it doesn't have a lot of energy or vibrancy by itself. Pause the video right now and choose your dominant product brand color if you haven't already. And if you want to take full advantage of our turnkey product brand palettes, simply pick your favorite palette from the Ultimate Visual Product Branding Guide that we provided you with the worksheets for today's training. Keep it simple for yourself. We've designed these professional palettes for you. Simply choose one of the palettes that we've provided, and you can move on to the more important work of designing your product. You don't need to reinvent the wheel at this point. Okay, it's time to move on to the third essential element in your product branding, your font palette. I love talking about fonts because very few people realize the full power of typography to transform the look, feel, and experience of your product brand. What do I mean by that? Well, in my work transforming the businesses of my clients, many of them were coming to me complaining that their websites weren't getting results, weren't getting them noticed as the authorities that they were, and not generating enough clients and sales, and on and on and on. And you can bet that I've seen some pretty shocking before examples. Here's one from product launch guru Minders Glover. Minders used to be Don Crowther's chief of staff, and he's executed dozens of successful launches, generating millions of dollars. When he came to me, 100% of his business was coming from word-of-mouth referrals. In other words, his website was generating him pretty much no leads. When he told me this, I remember being surprised since I know how competent Minders was at what he did. But when I checked out his site, it was obvious why. You can see his before site here on the screen. Focus for a moment only on the choice of fonts and not the overall design. Give me your first reaction on whether those fonts fill you with confidence that this guy is really at the top of his game, one of the best in his field. So how are you feeling? Even if you have no background in design, most of you are probably screaming at the screen right now. It just feels wrong, doesn't it? There's just something about these font choices that says amateur, untrustworthy, or cheap, right? It's sending off signals that say, I'm not serious. You don't need to understand why, just recognize if you're feeling this way. So Minders and I worked together and came up with a new set of fonts, headlines, subheadlines, body copy, and accent fonts that really work to give him huge levels of credibility and authority. So here's the new site that we designed for Minders. All I ask you to do is focus on the font palette above all else. If you stripped away all the design, how would that choice of fonts make you feel? More or less confident that he knows what he's doing than the first set? So that's the big difference a professionally designed font palette can have for you. A font palette is a collection of 3 to 5 branded fonts that you use consistently across every web page you create, as well as all your other materials. Think of it like a simple branding shortcut that allows your prospects to make a decision in the blink of an eye, whether they're going to reward you with a little bit of their time and stay a little longer on your site. It sends a signal that you're no longer a Me Too hobby business owner and could be someone worth paying attention to. Look at any well-branded thought leader. I guarantee they'll have a core set of fonts they use over and over again. So don't be tempted to get creative and add new fonts everywhere you show up. By consistently using the right font palette, you not only add value to your brand, you can actually increase your conversions by calling attention to exactly what you want your visitors to focus on. And I'll show you a really ninja way to do this in just a moment. But first, let me walk you through the 3 to 5 fonts that make up your font palette. We give you all the fonts you need in our pre-designed font palettes, except Essential Font number 1. Essential Font number 1 is your logo font, or the font that you use to depict your product name, whether you choose a serif font, sans serif font, script font, a decorative, or an ornamental font, or a combination of two. Your logo font will be chosen by your graphic designer on Fiverr.com. By complementing your logo and logo font with the color and font palettes we provide you with, you can have all your product branding done quickly for between $5 and $50. Next, Essential Font number 2 is your headline and title fonts. Since your headers and titles are the most important copy on your sales pages, you want these to be as clear and eye-catching as possible. The right headline can double or triple conversions, especially if it's emphasized by the right font. This may or may not be the same as your logo font. If you use a fancy script or serif font in your logo, I would recommend using something simpler and cleaner for your headline and title fonts. Here's an example of the same headline in a poor font choice and a strong font choice. Can you see the difference? One looks elegant and professional, and the other just looks squat and ugly. Now, don't worry if you don't have the visual branding chops to discern between the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're providing you with 11 complete font palette options to complement your logo font, which is more than enough options to create something truly great and pass the 3-second test. So you can move on to the bigger, more important work of designing your experience product. Next, Essential Font number 3 is your body copy, or the font you use for the rest of your copy throughout your website. You want this to be as clear and legible as possible, and for the most part, you want to stay completely away from script and serif fonts here. Let me show you why. Here's a script font used for body copy. It's almost impossible to read, right? And here is a serif font used for body copy. All those extra flourishes on the letters work great in print, but not so great on screens. That said, in the palettes we do give you the option of a modern serif body font that's designed for the web. Now here's an example of a clean, clear, easy to read body copy font. You want this font to go under the radar. People aren't supposed to notice your body font choice. You want them reading what you've written and not thinking about the font. That said, I do recommend keeping it 100% consistent across everything you do. Next, we have your button and label text. This font is used for buttons and sometimes column headers and section dividers too. It's usually a clear, bold font that instantly draws attention. You don't want to mess around in your buttons with fonts that are unclear or hard to read. You want people to know exactly what they're supposed to do. You can also use a bold version of your headline or body font here. This doesn't have to be a new font, it simply has to stand out. Here's a button that we use on the Message to Money Live sales page. You can also use this font for column headers too. Finally, the last of our 5 essential fonts your site must have to be taken seriously. This is something that very few people know about or implement. It's what we call your accent font. This font can be a bit more playful, distinct, or branded to your business. Since accent fonts are used to create visual emphasis, it's common to choose a handwritten or script font here. This allows you to use your accent font as a visual prompt to call attention to buttons or important text, or to divide sections of your website. Here's an example from the website we designed for Evan Markatz. We use an accent font called D'Artagnan. As you can see, we use this font for key page dividers to emphasize different sections of the site, such as the Join 5 Million Readers text we use here to segment the top buying part of the homepage from the bottom value part. In other cases where the column header or section divider is less important, we use the label text. We also use accent fonts all the time with our Live Your Message branding. Here's an example from our current website. We use the accent font to emphasize and differentiate our page header font from the headlines lower on in the page. That just makes our top banner a little more fun and interesting. In the Visual Product Branding Guide, we give you 11 different font palette options to choose from. Pause the video now to choose your favorite font palette for your product brand. This will give your designer a sense of the types of fonts you're attracted to. That said, you may want to change your selection once you see your logo font, so you choose a palette that specifically complements that. Now you have all the fonts you need to make your product stand out in the market. Moving on to the 4th essential element in your visual branding, the photos you choose to represent your products. I'm not going to talk in this training about doing a professional photo shoot and getting pictures of you taken, since I don't want to pull you away from getting your product designed, marketed, and making $2,000 or a whole lot more in 10 weeks or less, and you don't need an awesome picture of yourself to sell your product. That said, I do include some info on how to take great photos of yourself in the Ultimate Visual Product Branding Guide. Instead, I'm going to focus on how to find great free stock photos to represent your product. I'm actually going to divulge the secret of where we get all our free photos, which I've never shared publicly before, since this is a bit of a trade secret, and in Heroic, we integrate with all the APIs of these high-quality free stock image sites, so you're going to be able to search directly in the platform and insert photos right into your web pages for your products. We'll be giving you a free 3-month trial membership in Heroic when we enter the Experience Marketing Essentials module of the masterclass. So you're going to be able to find all the free stock images that you need by searching directly in the platform. Our 3 favorite high-quality stock image sites that integrate right into Heroic are Pixabay, Pexels, and Unsplash. We find all our blog post images on these sites, and they're a great free resource. All you have to do is search these sites for particular words or kinds of images, and you'll find lots of great photos to choose from. I also include a more complete list of free stock photo sites in the guide. If you want more creative, artistic, or homemade images, then I recommend doing a Creative Commons search on Flickr by checking the box you can see here on the screen. Flickr is a photography social sharing site where amateur photographers from around the world post their images. Many of them choose a Creative Commons license, which allows you to use these images on your site in exchange for a photo credit and hopefully link from your site to their photo stream. Finally, if you don't find what you're looking for on these free sites, You can choose to purchase stock photography at reasonable price points on one of the 3 biggest paid sites, Shutterstock, Big Stock Photo, and iStock Photo. All 3 sites make it easy for you to do quick searches for photos using terms that relate to the images you're trying to find, such as cute dogs or healthy food or joyful women. These sites also allow you to search for illustrations and graphics. I find the big paid sites tend to have more corporate imagery, and I'm a fan of more humanistic or natural imagery. In general, you want to pick one kind of image style and stick with it, so your product has a consistent look and feel. Whether that's warm humanistic images that show people in the context of real settings, or corporate business images that look more professional and a bit more posed, graphic illustrative images that are more creative and favor illustrations over photos, or natural imagery and landscapes that showcase nature more than people, or even black and white or tonal imagery. Keep in mind that a graphic artist can make any photo black and white or tonal. I recommend choosing one style and picking images that fit that style so they work together, like this example from my client Michal Spiegelman of Balanced Moments. Notice how each of the 3 images has a similar feeling and vibrancy to them, which helps them all work together. Clearly, Michal prefers warm, humanistic images. Here's another example from Andrea Havernin of AH Graphics and an experienced product masterclass student. Andrea obviously went for graphic illustrative images that really support her work as a graphic designer. She also chose images that match her orange, green, black, and white palette. And of course EPM with our black and white imagery. Pause the video and take a moment now to choose what kind of imagery you want to use to represent your product. You can choose between warm humanistic images that show people in the context of real settings, corporate business images that look more professional and a little bit more posed, natural imagery and landscapes that showcase nature more than people, graphic illustrative images that are more creative and favor illustrations over photos, black and white or tonal imagery. One quick word about image quality before we move on to talking about hiring a designer on Fiverr.com to create your font-based product logo. Another word that's commonly used for image quality is resolution, and it's important to download, buy, or ask your photographer for high-resolution images, so your graphics look sharp and crisp rather than blurry or pixelated. The web is going more and more high definition as monitor quality continues to improve. In many cases, website banners span the entire width of your screen. So if you want an image that spans the full width of your screen, I recommend getting an image that's at least 2,000 pixels wide that can be displayed full screen without any loss of quality. I've included a quick resolution cheat sheet in the Ultimate Visual Product Branding Guide for full screen images, as well as smaller images, which will help you download and buy the right size images as you go out and do your stock photo research. That said, I do recommend always getting larger images if you can, so you can use them in other contexts in the future. Now that we've talked about the 4 key visual product branding elements, let's quickly talk about how to find a graphic designer on Fiverr.com to design your font-based product logo for you. Don't worry if you've never used Fiverr before or outsourced anything for your business. Just last week, I was speaking to one of my healer clients. She had never hired a graphic designer or used Fiverr before, and she was shocked and excited by how easy it was. She quickly designed a postcard for the Start with an Experience campaign that you'll be learning about in Experience Marketing Essentials. By doing this once, she now has the resources she needs to get new marketing and branding done quickly and easily whenever she decides to run a new campaign or develop a new product. Trust me, it's super simple. All you need to do is go to Fiverr.com and type in logo design. Preview the first 1 to 2 pages of search listings for designers that look good to you and have font-based logos similar to what you want to create. Click through and make sure that person has a 5-star overall rating with at least 1,000 ratings. Order a package between $5 and $50. Specify the kind of logo you want, along with 2 to 3 examples you like, as well as the type of font or font combination that you want to use in your logo, plus your product color palette, and even your font palette from our Ultimate Visual Product Branding Guide. Please let them know that you want them to choose a unique logo font that complements the other 4 fonts in your palette. Or you can give them full reign on logo font and then afterwards choose the palette that works best with their design. That's it. You can quickly have everything that you need to pass the 3-second test for $5 to $50 when you're clear about what you want. This training and the Ultimate Product Visual Branding Guide has given you everything you need to get clear. Now that you know how to get noticed, in the next training, we're going to jump back down to step 5 of the product sales sequence. Should I buy? In the next optional overachiever track training, you're going to discover how to overcome concerns and turn I don't know into I'm in with what I call a scary you can't fail guarantee, which isn't as scary as it sounds. See you soon.